Hey guys, today, last video about Ulduar, we make a fun tier list. I would say we just make an honest tier list. That means we go through the specs and say if they were doing great, okay, or at the end just Dogwater. We have here the official list of classic Warcraft logs over the range of the last 2 weeks. That's sadly the maximum that we can put here. But yeah, we can see here a lot. We see here also the damage to bosses. We can see the damage in total, for example. So we go a little bit back and forth, and we will rank the specs here by this. I would say let us just go kind of random. Let us start with Assassination Rogue. Assassination Rogue, without any doubt, another great phase for Assassination Rogue. Awesome in single target, still okay or good in AoE fights, especially if they swap a little bit of talents. So overall, great spec. You want to have 2 or 3 in your raid group, in your raid composition, and that will just continue in the next phase. So overall, great spec, Assassination Rogue for Ulduar in phase 2. Let's come to Marksman Hunter. Definitely not good. We saw very few of them. Makes not a lot of sense to spec Marksman, especially when you think about how good Survival Hunter is doing. Here, especially with the AoE, sure, they drop a little bit, I think, when only 2 bosses. Yeah, as you can see here, only 2 bosses. So Marksman Hunter, not a good spec, just Dogwater. Let's go to Enhancement Shaman. Yeah, Enhancement Shaman, overall another good phase. They are very stable DPS. I would definitely say they are one of the specs that guilds don't want to stack, because they are not like Affliction, warlock, or whatever, or Assassination Rogue, what we were talking about, but they are still doing a good damage. They bring good DPS to the raid. I also have a very good experience with Enhancement Shaman players. They are mostly very good players. As you can see here, they are completely attached to the middle of the pack in complete damage, and also in damage to the bosses they're even a little bit higher than the middle of the pack. So overall, I think from my perspective, Enhancement Shaman had another great like I said, we don't rank like they're making the most. For sure, the best DPS will also be on the top, but it's not like I will not rank exactly if they did bad or good, but also like in perspective what you were expecting from them. Yeah. Okay, for me, a great phase for Enhancement Shaman, and I guess that will continue as well. Let's go to Sub Rogue. Sub Rogue, honestly, okay, they are not great DPS overall. In both things, in damage to bosses and in damage overall, they are doing not a great job damage-wise. But strangely, they had the time to shine when it's coming to Ulduar, and I guess we talk especially about 10-man Ulduar, because in a 25-man raid that is organized, maybe you always have a Shadow Priest. But if you don't have always a Shadow Priest, you can do it with a Sub-Rogue. It's not 100% perfect constantly, but still on a very, very high range, so that you can definitely use it. And that's why I rank Sub-Rogue here. They were doing okay damage, better than people expected, and they had the time to shine on the Algolon fight. That brings us to Shadow Priest. I think Shadow Priest started pretty good and then dropped a little bit, if I'm not wrong. Let me see. They are in the middle of the pack on both sides. Damage to bosses, damage overall in the last 2 weeks. So I think definitely we can put them into okay. maybe in a positive way in okay. So they did definitely okay. Not much more, not much less. I'm not sure how they will scale. I think they will stay around low A tier, high B tier for the next phases. So we will see. Let's go to the next Hunter spec, Beastmaster Hunter. Another spec that was just Dogwater, pretty bad, low damage, low parsing wise. Yeah, very low passing numbers, so just a bad spec for this phase. Let's come to Arcane Mage. As you can see here, Arcane Mage damage overall is middle of the pack. Let us go to damage to bosses. Pretty good. As shorter the fights were lasting, as better the Arcane Mage became. So I would say, seeing it from the perspective that they were in Naxx top and now Fire Mage overrun them, I mean, it's hard to say they had a great phase, but I still want to give them credits because they figured out getting better and better over the phase. Sure, a lot of this goes to the shorter boss fights, but overall, I would say Arcane Mage had a good phase, had a great phase. And yeah, I'm excited to see if this will continue or if fire mages are just completely overrun them in the next 1.5 phases. Okay, that brings us to Boomkin. Balanced Druid, as you can see here, damage to bosses. They are on the low end of the middle of the pack, and also in damage overall, they should be not in a crazy different position. Yeah, exactly here. So what I will give them is a low okay. A low okay. I think it was kind of what we expected. But there were also chances it goes a little bit up, especially then maybe later on with the shorter boss fights. But no, there was no change in that case. So just okay. Let's talk about Retribution Paladin. They had a buff. They made a little jump after this buff. As you can see it here, they are on the low end. They are even now outnumbered here from Frost Mage. They are a good step away from Fury Warriors. It's already damaged. So here, damage to bosses. Same here. Frost Mage, Fury Warrior, a good step ahead of them. Bad phase for Red Paladins, even with the buff. It's not really a good DPS. To be honest, it's a bad TPS. Yeah, you can argue they can swap specs for some fight, like heal, tank, whatever. They bring a buff if you need the buff. If you don't have, 2 or 3, if you don't have already enough paladins in your raid, they can bring a buff. But overall, I would say Dogwater. This Dogwater is maybe better Dogwater than the 200 specs at the moment. But yeah, it is how it is. Okay, let us go to Unholy DK. Unholy DK struggled a little bit at the start of the phase because of the hard nerfs that they got going into the phase. And once again, they figured out to came back on the top, especially as you can see here on the boss fights, which is in my opinion a little bit more important in Ulduar, because as far as I know, we got, I think, not even 50% of the raid guilds defeated Algolon and Yok 0, if I'm not wrong. So I think boss fight damage is more important than damage overall in Ulduar, apart from this if you are speedrunning for sure. So Unholy DK, another great phase. They figured it out. I think there are a lot of Unholy DKs. That means a lot of theory crafting. A lot of theory crafting is usually helping people a lot to get better and better over the weeks, and we can see here that was what happened to Unholy DK during this phase. Great, and they will be also good in the next phase. Let's go to Elemental Shaman, another caster. Yeah, I think Elemental Shaman, what is to say about it? I mean, you see the numbers here and here, and if you see Elemental Shaman, I think it's the definition of okay. So not more, not less, just doing okay. Let us swap this here around. Just doing okay. So that's it. Easy peasy. Demo Warlock. So Demo Warlock is here on damage overall. pretty far on top. And also here they have a decent place on damage to bosses. They bring a very important buff to the raid. So I think Demo Warlocks in a very good spot. Every raid needs minimum 1. I think there's no problem having 2, especially if they are good players. So it's bring the players, not a class. But overall, great phase for Demo Warlocks. They are always needed. Good damage, awesome buff. That's it. Destruction Warlock. Let us go directly to the next Warlock. Destruction Warlock is here, pretty close to Demo Warlock. And also, let us see the damage overall. Here is the Destruction Warlock in the middle of the pack. That should lead to the result that I put him in okay. But no, I will not put him in okay. I will put him in Dogwater. Why? Nobody plays Destruction Warlock. I mean, I don't know. Maybe here the parcels show something different. Let me see. 16,000. I mean, is much more than, for example, Frost Mage or Beast Hunter. But I have to say, I never saw one. There is no reason at all to have a Destruction Warlock because the other 2 Warlock specs are just better, or in case of Demonology Warlock, also much more useful because of the buff. So I would say very bad phase for Destruction Warlocks. There was no reason to bring them. Besides, you had a player that is super attached to exactly this spec, then for sure, why not? But apart from this, no reason to bring a Destruction Warlock. That's why I ranked them. I ranked them for sure over Red Paladin because they are doing much better damage, but overall, no reason to bring them. Let us come to Frost Mage. If I rank Destruction Warlock in Dogwater, I have to do the same with Frost Mage. Because a Frost Mage makes no sense to bring. You have 2 really good mage specs, so there's no reason for Frost Mage besides a player says like, I only want to play Frost Mage and that's it. Apart from this, Frost Mage is not doing good damage-wise. Sure, as you can see here, better than Red Paladin and the 200 specs. Damage to bosses even better than Fury Warrior. But yeah, apart from this, no sense. So I will not put it higher than Dogwater. Let us go to Frost DK. Frost DK are here. Damage to bosses in the middle of the pack. A little bit higher than the middle of the pack. Damage overall, they are middle of the pack, I would say. But I had a feeling that in the first 8 or 10 weeks of Ulduar, they were doing much better. Now they got overrun by some specs because of the shorter boss fights, because Unholy DK figured out their problems, because Assassination rogues were getting better and better, combat rogues were doing more damage and damage over the face. But I think overall, Frost DK had a great phase too. They were showing that it's no problem if Unholy DKs are not anymore so overwhelming strong. So Frost DK really showed there is a second spec that makes a lot of sense to play. It's definitely not a spec that you want to stack, so it makes no sense to have 3 Frost DKs, but 1 always, and I think also no problem having 2 if they are good players. So I think I have the feeling Frost DK had a great phase too. Let's come to Feral. Oh, very good thing. They started on the bottom, very tied to Fury Warrior and Retribution Paladin. I think they were a little bit higher than Fury Warrior. As we can see now, they are on damage overall pretty close to the top DPS. The only ones that are here far ahead are those. And on damage to bosses, they are on 5th place. So it's what should I say? Is great. I mean, if we talk about steps that they made during the phase, I think there is no doubt that Feral Druid was the best. I mean, They were on place, I don't know, what is it here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They were on like 12, 15, and now they are on 5th place. I mean, it's just crazy overall. So at the moment, I would say for them was the best phase. They made the biggest jump overall. They did not just hold their position, like you can argue about Unholy DK and Assassination Rogue. They had, they made a lot of places, a lot of spots good. So overall, great phase for Feral Druids. Do I like? I still would criticize the buff that they get, the adjustment, but it is like it is now, and they are just great DPS from that moment that this buff happened, or this adjustment. Survival Hunter, I think they had a great phase. They showed a lot of. They showed that you definitely can have 2 or 3 in the raid if you want. Sure, there's only like, let me say, 1 necessary, but there's no problem having 2 or 3, especially if they are, again, good players. Let's bring the player, not a class. We had mostly 2 of them in the raid in our guilds. Both did very well overall the phase. I think they dropped a little bit during the past 5, 6, 7 weeks. So the first 10 weeks were for them better than the last 10 weeks. I would say so. The first half was better for them, like the second half, but I think they did a great job. They showed much more up on the DPS, on the damage meter, than in Naxx. So overall, I would say Survival Hunter had a great phase, good DPS. Arms Warrior, let's make it quick. Bad. Dogwater, and not a fresh Dogwater, very bad one. Combat Rogue, that's what I play. I mean, I guess there is no doubt to say Combat Rogue had a great phase. Not as great as Feral Warrior, because it did not make a lot of jumps in the ladder. It was never top DPS, so Unholy and Assassination Rogue definitely had a better time, but I still think Combat Rogue showed up once again to be competitive, very competitive to the top spec in some fights. So I would rank it behind Assassination Rogue and Unholy DK. Maybe there will something change in the next few specs that I will put there, but overall they did very good. And yeah, Combat Rogue, I think, definitely deserves a top spot. Not top, but a top spot. Fury Warrior. Oh, good question with Fury Warrior. I think you can argue between Dogwater and OK. I would rank them in OK. I think, especially with a lot of gear, and in some fights they were doing good. On some fights they're just Dogwater, yeah. So I would rank them above Subrogue. Again, Subrogue is not in OK because of his damage. Subrogue is there because it has OK damage and brings something unique for Algalon. Fury Warrior, yeah, can definitely help to tank in some fights, so there's also a little bit of options that you have with a Fury Warrior. So I rank them in low OK. I think that is fine. Let's come to Affliction Warlock. Affliction Warlock is on the rise since the end of Naxx. They made it to the, let us see here, damage to bosses is on the 3rd place. Damage overall is on the 1st place. So they made a great job once again. It's hard to rank Unholy DK, Assassination Rogue, and Affliction Warlock. I would really say they are so close together, because you can always argue Unholy DK so good in boss fight, but also, as you can see here, is super tight to the Affliction Warlock. That's why I rank him on a little, like 0.1 step higher than Assassination Rogue and Affliction Warlock. And yeah, you have the Assassination Rogue is so easy to play. Affliction Warlock brings a lot of damage overall, a little bit less damage in boss fights. But they are tight. They are tight. A great phase for Affliction Warlocks. I guess that will continue as well. And now we have also Fire Mage. I would put Fire Mage here. Great phase for Fire Mage. They rise from, not from the bottom, but yeah, from the middle of the pack to the top. So our definitely, as you see all these specs here now in crates, then maybe you will realize that those are the specs that you love to have in the raid. Also stacked, maybe, like I said, if we talk about stacked, but I gave always an explanation, then I think Feral Druid makes no sense to stack. Again, besides you have two good players. Frosty K, the same. I mean, stacking is like three and more, and I mean 3 and more makes it really only sense on Affliction Warlock, Assassination Rogues, and Unholy DK. But just don't forget, we have only 25 people, so maybe you don't even have those specs 3 or more times into the raid. Looking into this, like I said, these are the specs that you definitely want to have into the raid. The other specs you usually have only maximum 1 time or for buff reasons or whatever. These specs you usually don't want to bring, or you will just not see, like I said, with Destruction Warlock. Retribution Paladin has a little bit of the thing, like I said, they can swap to tank or heal in some fights. Okay, Sub-Rogue, then the argument, Algolon, is it good or not, is such a thing. You can usually also just swap the talents just for Algolon and play before Algolon Assassination Rogue or Combat Rogue. But you have to put the specs into the list, so for sure there you can always argue about is it right or wrong. That's my list. Great, okay, and Dogwater. That's it for Ulduar, guys. We're starting into TOC in like a week. I wish everybody a lot of fun. See you. Bye bye.